Good evening, Broncos country, and welcome to Orange and Blue View. We are going to jump into the statement that quarterbacks coach Davis Webb said about Russell Wilson and where he stands all time in dual threat quarterbacks. This is what we're going to talk about. Ron is with me here, obviously, my co-host, back from being off last week. So welcome back, Ron, and thanks for being here. How's it going, man? I mean, it's been a couple weeks. We're almost here to the NFL season.
Yes, thanks, Thomas. And thank you. It's good to see everyone. It's good to be back. And I am excited. We are actually next week. Live action with football starts on Thursday,
That's
and
right.
I cannot be more excited to get this season underway. So glad to be back in the
Yeah, I'm
saddle.
pretty excited too. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to into this season. One of them being our pregame show. We're coming on
Yeah.
Saturday, the last Mile High Huddle show before the games start for the most part. And we're going to be doing the preview, which has been pretty fun for me the last couple of weeks as we've kind of tried it out in the pregame. But this week there's no game, so we're going to talk about something else, right? We're going to talk about a pretty bold statement, at least on the when you're looking at it from the outside looking in, when he says that when Davis West says that Russell Wilson is the top 3 dual threat quarterback of all time. That's a pretty bold statement. And at first you kind of think, oh, wait, he's not top 3 quarterback. But when you start to think about dual threat, that starts to change things a little bit. But before we jump in, I'm going to say hello to David Youngkin. Was in here before the show started. Thanks for being here, David. Saying evening, everyone. I'm hoping Russ will prove everybody wrong and at least get us to the playoffs. Yeah, David, thanks for coming in. We're that way with you too, man. It was a bad season last year. It was a huge dip, and there's a lot of speculation, both good and bad. And so hopefully, for the Broncos and Russell Wilson's sake, and for all the fans, he's going to be, back up to snuff, so to speak.
Yes,
And
David. Thank you
Dylan
for
Von
coming
Arx is
in.
coming
And
in. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
uh,
Sorry.
yeah, I just want to get back to David. Yeah. Thank you, David, for coming in. I think we all agree with you that we're all wanting Russ to get back to the Russ we know. That we're wanting Russ to prove everyone wrong, to get back to the good playmaking ability, and get us back to the playoffs. Again, I don't think that's too much to ask. Getting us back to the playoffs, which we've missed for so many years now.
Yeah.
So I think we all feel encouraged. We're all optimistic with this new style that Sean Payton is bringing in. That will happen. But yeah, we're all hoping for the same thing. And thank you for coming again, my man. We know we always appreciate you.
Absolutely. And Dylan Von Arx, our own staffer here at Mile High Huddle, is reminding everybody to hit the like button and share on all platforms and subscribe if you haven't already, and which is great advice. And also follow us on Twitter. Ron White NFL is his Twitter handle, and mine's Thomas Hall NFL. Very similar Twitter handle, so it's hard to forget. But yeah, follow us and continue to be prepared for pregame shows coming up. That's going to be great. And Kevin Gray was in here
Yes.
early too, saying evening, Thomas, Ron, and Scott. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country. Denver Broncos for life, Mile High Huddle for life. I'm just going to remind you that Scott's, not usually here on Saturday. He's got other engagements. So we are doing it all on our own, running the show. Hopefully there's no technical difficulties, and hopefully we see all the comments and, people that are coming in with Facebook stars. I've got my computer open here, so hopefully I can get that in. But all right,
Yes.
let's
And thank
say
you,
hi to some more
Kevin.
folks.
I want to get Kevin's comment here. Just one shout out, Thomas, before you go. Thank you, Kevin. Again, he says, "I guess the haters are still there. Congrats to the Buffs." Yes. So congratulations to the Buffs and Coach Prime's debut. Got that victory over TCU Horn Frogs. So that was a
That's
great
right.
game. I saw some of it earlier, back and forth, but it was good to see them come out on top. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge win. It's a huge win for
yes,
Colorado,
yes,
really. I mean, they were underdogs.
yeah.
I think I saw it was the first time that a Power Five
Yep.
team won that was such a large underdog on opening week or something like that. I mean, there's a huge
Mhm.
deal, man. That's a big win. So yeah, congrats
Yes.
to the Buffs, man. Very, very well done. Got Seth coming in saying, hey, Broncos country, Ron and Thomas, how's everyone doing? Well, we're doing great because we're here with you guys tonight. We are talking with the people in the chat tonight. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about Russell Wilson. We're going to talk about what his new quarterback coach said. So we're going to jump into that after we say hello to a few people. Michael Davis is in saying, go Buffs. Amazing, inspiring, electric, everything we needed. Yeah, I mean, you got the Nuggets winning the championship. You've got the Avs winning the championship not very long ago. You got the Buffs seem like they're back. Broncos need to be back as well.
It's Broncos time.
That's right. It's their time. Ernie Mays is coming in. Thank you for being here, Ernie. We really appreciate it. Saying hello to myself and Ron. Go Broncos. Country only football is coming. Absolutely. Yes. And speaking of football is coming, Stu McPeak is here giving us a generous super chat. So thank you so much, Stu. Really, really appreciate it. And he says, what's your gut say on the Raiders game, which is week 1 coming up in a week, just over a week, Ron? What's your gut saying?
Yes, thank you, Stu, for coming in. This is a great question. I would say a Broncos victory. I don't think it's going to come easy, though. I do expect to start out the season, it's going to be a heavy emphasis on this run game. It's going to be ground pound attack. Again, more P. Ryan. I'll expect more P. Ryan in this game, but obviously we'll see Williams worked in with McLaughlin as well. So expect a heavy ground game with, Russ on the boot and some of those playmaking abilities that we know Russ to do. So I do expect some of that. But I do expect the Broncos to come out on top. I'm thinking 26-27 to 19 Broncos. So something along those lines, Stu, is how I see that home opener against the Raiders going.
Yeah, and we're going to be giving our predictions at Mile High Huddle. We always do. We do our roundtable for our games. I think we'll probably do another, kind of season prediction as well. So look for that coming up on milehighhuddle.com. But my perspective is it's a home game, opening week. The Broncos are one of the best teams opening week, especially at home in, the last 20 years or so. So even when they're bad, they still tend to do okay on opening week. So, and I'll tell you, I feel like the Raiders are kind of a mess, right? Josh McDaniels did his Josh McDaniels special, so to speak. It's just one of those things where I think they're a mess. I think the Broncos are we didn't see the real offense with the Broncos, right? We didn't see what Sean Payton had in store for anybody in preseason. I think you're going to be witness to a better offense, going to catch, the Raiders off guard, and they're just going to get, I think they're going to win going away towards the end. And then they're going to showcase that 4-minute offense where they just pound the rock and grind it down and end up winning. So that's my prediction. I hope I'm right. I really do. So thanks, Stu, for coming in. Really appreciate that a lot. Dominic Martin is coming in saying, Tom and Ron, the podcast to be on. Well, thank you very much, Dominic. We really appreciate that. And appreciate you being here. It's Saturday night. We're glad that you're taking your time to be with us. Orange and Blue View is the crew. And the question is, do you guys think that we can stop the Raiders Bronco killer running back? Redemption game for PS2, Mile High Huddle for life. So we're going to add that, to that question. We're talking about it. I don't mind if Jacobs gets some yards, right? As long as he doesn't just destroy the defense like he has in the past. If he gets to close to 100, that's fine. As long as the rest of the defense steps up and they make the play when it matters, I'll be fine. I want to see the offense be able to really carve up that secondary. I don't think they got a very good secondary. I think they have a very good interior, the off-ball linebackers. I think their biggest star really is their edge rusher. And, if they can figure out a way to negate his rushing ability, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, Thomas. I don't. For me, Dominic, I don't. Again, Jacobs is going to get his yards. He's a great. I mean, you could probably consider him top 5 running back in the league. Some would argue. So he's going to get his yards. I'm more concerned about our defense making those clutch plays. as you just alluded to, Thomas. Getting those fumbles, getting those interceptions, and that leads into your next point of Patrick Surtain. Now, we did see with PS2, outside of maybe one or two plays, I think with the last matchup with the Raiders, PS2 held his own against Devontae Adams.
Yep.
So you'll see more of that. I'm not worried about PS2 at all. I think those two latter plays within the last game, that wasn't really all his fault. That was all coverage between Jackson, but that's neither here nor there. But I think PS2 will definitely hold his own, and then it's not too much of a redemption game. At least that's how I look at it. But yeah, making the plays when it matters. Our offense, if we run the ball, put up points, the Raiders defense as a whole, Thomas, is not that concerning to me. Yeah, you're right. Up front on the edge, maybe a little bit cause for concerns. They're a little stout there, but this secondary can be carved up. I'm not worried at all. Not worried.
Yeah. Great. And we got Michael Davis coming with a super chat. So thank you so much for the generosity. Really appreciate it. Saying, Gents, how do we beat the Raiders? Play with a lead to neutralize Jacobs. Absolutely. If they can get ahead, that will definitely help. And let the pass rush eat. That's right. Let's start 1-0. Go Broncos. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are a lot of things. And the nice thing about it is we're going to be coming on next Saturday, right? Saturday evening, we're going to do a preview. We're going to bring in a lot of these, matchups. We're going to bring in a lot of these, analytics, things like that, talking about what the Broncos can do against the Raiders to come out victorious. So, check that out next week. I don't want to give too much away. We haven't done a ton of research on it yet because we're actually have a different topic tonight. But it's great. I'm with you. If they can they can keep Jacobs from going wild and they can get a lead, man, it's the Broncos, I think, will have a great time.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, again, neutralize Jacobs and PS2 keeping Devontae Adams at bay. I mean, again, guys, we're talking about Jimmy G here. I'm not worried.
Who came into Denver last year and lost, right? With
and lost,
49ers team that went to the playoffs and we're actually good. And Jimmy G came in and I was right there. I was like 4 rows back when he stepped out of bounds, which was actually ended up being a bummer because it would have been a touchdown had he not stepped out of bounds.
For us. Just a safety. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. Got Keith Brugman coming in saying, I don't get to catch Thomas and Ron all that often, but when I do, it's awesome. Well, thanks, Keith. Appreciate that very much for that shout out. And we really do appreciate it. We have a lot of fun. So, and we're going to have even more fun when it comes to the football season for sure. And we got Gary Palmer coming in with the generous super chat as well. Thank you so much, Gary. And thanks for being a loyal listener for so long to all the Mile High Huddle shows. Hopefully we'll get to see you out there at the meet and greet, which is October 22nd, Green Bay game. Hopefully we'll see you again out there. He says, hey, guys, I think we dominate, which is talking about the Raiders. Just my opinion. Well, it's a good opinion because we all hope that too, Gary. Go Broncos and buck 'em. So, yeah, thank you so much. I hope we do too. I hope we watch the Broncos just it's time. It's like 6 games in a row that the Broncos have come out on the losing end. It's time to make that change, and the NFL does go in cycles at times where you have a dominant. I mean, everybody's talking about the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Broncos for so long. Well, they did the same thing, back in their heyday too. So, they had strung several wins together. So hopefully that cycle comes back around and hopefully the Broncos can really, show the football world that they're for real. Right. And, I know September is oftentimes where a lot of pretenders, kind of show up, but hopefully they are not.
Yes, that's a good point, Thomas. And thank you, Gary, for coming in. We always appreciate you, my man. And I hope we dominate. That we need to dominate. It would be nice to dominate. And again, I know it's just the Raiders, but put the league on notice. Like you said, it's been the past 6 matchups against the Raiders have not gone our way, and we need to get this off our back. So if we can start off with a dominant win, that can carry on to the next week and then the week after, and let's just see how the season plays out. But I'm hoping for a very solid overall Broncos performance on next Sunday.
And Lawrence Rivera's coming in with the Facebook Stars saying Raiders are losers, but they have Brady, and he's been present and vocal. I wouldn't count them out completely since we can't stop Jacobs. Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady being there as part of the ownership, we're going to see how that works out. The issues it's going to take a while to fix those issues. Whether Brady can, fix it this year or not, I don't know. But from my perspective, watching what Josh McDaniels has done over the last couple of years has not been very promising for that franchise. And yeah, Tom Brady might come in and change that, but there's already been some damage done. So we shall see if they take to heart what he's saying and come out much better than what we're expecting. But week one, we'll find out, right? We'll find out how good this Raiders team is and how good this Broncos team is really. And, that obviously that's the first game, and you see some first game pretenders come out and win, and everybody thinks that's great. And then they end up losing, in October and November. But we'll see what the difference is this year, right? We'll see the difference between last year's Broncos and last year's Raiders. So we'll check it. We'll see.
Yeah. And Lawrence,
all right, David.
Going back to Lawrence.
Go ahead.
Comment, Thomas. The Raiders are losers because they have Josh McDaniels. We'll see how Brady comes in. Again, all points are valid, Thomas. It's going to take a while they have a lot of holes on that roster. It's going to take a while to get that team to where they want to be. But, we've seen the Josh McDaniels experiment, in our time with us. And now with the Raiders, I just don't see where they're going to go this season. And I think Vance Joseph and this team will have some success against Josh Jacobs. Again, he's going to get his yards, but I do have a gut feeling that Joseph is going to preach to this defense that we just cannot let him run wild all over us. It just can't happen. So I think that message is going to be very important and scream loud and clear in this locker room leading up to game time. But we'll see what happens.
We will. Yeah, we'll see. David McIlrath coming in with a super chat. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate you being here on your Saturday night with both of us as we talk through the Broncos. And we're going to get to our topic here. We just got onto the Raiders game, so we are definitely going to dive into that next week. But David's coming and saying, "Good evening, Broncos country." Thomas, Ron, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. 12-5 plus. You're kind of hedging. You keep hedging your bet. Last week it was plus. Now it's 2 pluses. I mean, pretty soon you're going to be saying 13-4. So I'm happy that you're confident, David, and hopefully that actually happens. And it's the Buckham ×3 Mile High Huddle for life, Denver Broncos for life. Thanks for being here, David, and thank you for your generosity. Really, it's very much appreciated.
Definitely, David. Thank you, and keep that same energy up, David. 12-5. I love it.
That's right.
That's a good record, and that'll win a division. That will be a division-winning record.
And that's what I've been saying. I mean, 12 wins has won this division 7 out of the last 10 years. 12 wins or less. So if they can get to 12 wins, that means they probably swept the Chargers and the Raiders and split with the Chiefs. Yep. That's right. Probably, and that's that's a division-winning type of record if you can take care of business elsewhere. So we got Naj coming in with a generous super chat. Thank you so much, Naj. Really, really appreciate that. Saying, "Hey, brothers, I feel really good about this team across the board and believe that they will reach and exceed their full potential. What are your thoughts on the current roster, including the practice squad?" Well, the roster was an interesting way of building it from my perspective. And if you're on the outside looking in, you're like, why do they only have 4 wide receivers? And then one of them is injured in Jerry Jeudy. So it's really only 3. What's going on, and why so many offensive linemen and why so many people in the secondary? But Sean Payton came out and said it himself, and I wrote up something about it on milehighhuddle.com, so go check it out. He looked at the roster with the practice squad, and I even added the short-term injured reserve in there, looking at that as a whole, right? That's your roster now. Because of the practice squad, the changes that they've made has made it so much easier. It's not a developmental thing anymore. It used to be you had 6 and then they moved it to 8. You had players, and that was really, you put the people on there that you wanted to develop, hope that they could, get some practice in, and then maybe next year they could kind of step into a bigger role. But now you got vets on there. You can call people up on game day. So they've got they have 3 wide receivers on there now, and they're all ready to play, day one. They're not development guys. So there's really 7 wide receivers on the roster, and you can call them up for 3 weeks without having to do anything with the active roster. Right. So I think, I feel pretty good about the roster overall, because I like a lot of the players on it. I still have a couple questions about the depth in certain areas, just because injury. I mean, wide receiver depth still kind of worries me because of the injuries. The defensive line is a little bit worrisome to me as well. Still, I know Mike Purcell's back, but he has a history of injury. Jonathan Harris looks really good, but he's never really put it together. It's been injured. And then, you got Elijah Garcia, who was, preseason darling, but, he's inexperienced. So there are some question marks, and a lot of it has to do with injury. But if they can get back to health, and their starters can play up to their potential, which I think that's what Sean Payton is going to bring, is going to get more out of the team than what the other coaches have. I think they'll be okay. Ron, what do you think?
Well said, Thomas. I would agree with all points you just made. The way I like the roster the way it is. The active roster looks solid. I did have question marks about the number of wide receivers there, but with Judy possibly coming back sooner than expected, that kind of resolved a little bit of my concerns. The practice squad is very encouraging, although I do still have some questions on the depth side, as you mentioned. Those are 2 positions on my list: the wide receiver and the defensive line. Edge for me is also another one, as well, with the depth. But I think, again, when Sean Payton's looking at the entire team, inclusive, right, of that practice squad, he's going to pick the best players available on that day to play. And with the mix of experienced and non-experienced guys, I feel good with bringing someone up on the practice squad to play on game day. So I would say I'm good overall. Certain areas, certain positions, give me a little cause for pause, but overall, I feel good.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Ron, on the edge group. I think I like the edge group. On paper, before this started, I was like, yeah, I'm really worried about this edge group. Jonathan Cooper has made a tremendous leap. I think he's passed Frank Clark on the depth chart. I think he's the starter. It's Gregory Cooper. And then you have Frank Clark, who's very experienced and a solid pass rusher who's providing that depth. And then behind them, there's other. Benito's looks a heck of a lot better. And then when Baron Browning comes back from injury, hopefully it's soon. Hopefully he can come off the PUP list after those 4 weeks are up. I think it's a very solid edge rusher group that I think has more to offer than last year when it comes to somebody being injured. I think they're better in depth than they were last year, only because they've improved so much. The same players, pretty much. It's mostly the same players, but they've improved. So I like the edge group basically because Cooper took that massive leap. I think he's the biggest jump of any player on the roster. I think Cooper went from being a 4th or 5th type guy to a starter. And I think that was huge. And I'm rooting for him. It's a great story, an incredible story. So I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
you're right.
Naj,
He has looked good. Yeah. And thank you, Naj. And he has looked good, especially during the preseason. So yeah, you're right on Cooper. I want to maybe switch gears. I know thank you guys for coming for all your questions and comments. We appreciate it. This has been great talking about, the team and the upcoming Raiders game. We love it. But we want to get into the topic here for tonight's show. And of course, we'll get back to your questions and comments. But Davis Webb, as Thomas mentioned at the beginning of the show, had some comments to say about the Broncos quarterback. And I'll read some quotes here from check out on milehighhuddle.com. Uh, One of our staffers, Keith Cummings, put up a great article in regards to how Davis Webb sees Russell Wilson. So essentially, Davis Webb mentions that he regards Russell Wilson as the top three greatest dual threats of all time, depending on how you look at it, three or five. He's a special player. Then he goes on to say one of the things that has always bothered him so much over the years is that, you know, he's seen it with this and other teams that the league is so much copy and paste. As opposed to looking at your player as an individual and making your practice plan and drill tape the way you do meetings dedicated to that individual. And then Webb also goes on to say that, prior to him getting that quarterback's coach position for the Broncos, he made a few calls around the league to some of his buddies just to get some perspective, into how Russell works and such. And he says, I ended up calling a couple buddies that were also mutual friends with Russ to try and gather as much information as I could about him to walk in there and be prepared. Those first 5 slides were dedicated just for Russ because I saw a lot of great things from last year that nobody is talking about, and the way that Russ finished in particular. So, Thomas, kind of want to get your thoughts on what Webb had to say about top three or maybe top five dual threat quarterback of all time. Well, how do you see that? What's your take there?
Yeah, it's a pretty big boast right out of the gate if you think about it. But he's not saying the top three quarterback of all. He's talking about dual threat. And so if you kind of look at the dual threat quarterbacks over history, so I mean, you obviously you think about Michael Vick, you think about Cam Newton. Those are the two two quarterbacks with the most running yards of any quarterback in history. That's top two. Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than them, and he's number 3 on the rushing list. So I would take Russell Wilson's quarterbacking skills over those two anytime. So you kind of take those away. Lamar Jackson's another one, but the jury's still kind of not out on him, but he's been in the league a short time and he's a great passer. Don't get me wrong, but Russell Wilson's more proven than he is. So, you got to give Lamar Jackson more time. So that really leaves you with Randall Cunningham, Steve Young, Fran Tarkenton, and maybe Steve McNair, right? Those are the 4 that you really, because everybody else is, they're either pocket passers that were able to scramble and get yards. I would take Russell Wilson over Randall Cunningham as a passer any day of the week. I mean, Randall Cunningham had a couple of okay seasons, but as a passer, Wilson's much better. I would take Steve Young over Russell Wilson. Steve Young's Hall of Famer, great passer, great runner. And I would take Fran Tarkenton over him as well. Fran Tarkenton, if you adjust for era, he's had some amazing passing seasons, and he was known for his ability to run and scramble. So I would take Steve Young and Fran Tarkenton, and then really you're looking at Steve McNair. Who is Russell Wilson better than Steve McNair as a passer? I would tend to think so. So that top 3 in my mind isn't really out of the question, and definitely he's top 5 dual threat quarterback. So at first I was like, oh man, another coach really kind of boasting about his guys. But when you really sit down and you think about it and you look at the dual threat quarterbacks that were pretty decent quarterbacks, Russell Wilson is top 3. He's number 3, actually. When I make the list, he's number 3. How about you?
Yeah, this one. So when I looked at the comments, I did the same. I went on research just to kind of get an understanding of some of those other dual threats, and looked at their rushing yards, their rushing touchdowns, looked at some film, and it's at first I was like, nah, is he? But then when I broke everything down, he is top 3. It's hard for me to leave Russell Wilson out of the top 3. And you mentioned some good names, and Randall Cunningham, Cam Newton is kind of who I did the comparison with as well. Steve Young, Michael Vick, and Michael Vick just had that gear. He would he beat you with your legs, and I think that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people fear with Michael Vick for sure. He did beat you with his legs, but as a passer, I'm going to take Russell Wilson over Michael Vick as a passer. Um, so from what I've seen those years in Seattle, how he was able to make those off script plays when he was running while throwing, the rushing touchdowns. I don't see how you leave him out of the top three. And you mentioned, Lamar Jackson, jury's still out, right? There's only a few years of tape. Jalen Hurts right now, right? He only had that one good season this past year. So, Josh Allen is another that name has been touted as well. So those guys still have some time to prove themselves with that. But if we're looking, you know, back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and the 2010s, I just don't see where you would leave Russell Wilson off this list. And you know, the, again, just those off script plays and that running style, looking down the field while still running is just it's just second to none. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually in agreement with what Webb had to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And the interesting thing is, I think I told you this, but I went back and I did a era adjusted quarterback analysis. So I basically looked at every era compared to what the mean was and gave everybody kind of the statistically speaking. And if anybody wants to go compare quarterbacks across eras, you can do that. You can go to Tableau Public. I put a dashboard out there on Tableau Public under my name. You can go find it and you can look at it. Russell Wilson is one of the few quarterbacks who have had 4 80th or better percentile seasons with all these passing stats for his career. There's not many that have done that. Most of them are going to the Hall of Fame. A few of them aren't in the Hall of Fame. So Russell Wilson, before he had his down season last year, was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Michael Vick, not. The guy can throw
Not,
the ball,
yeah,
but he wasn't accurate enough. He just had no
yeah, he
accurate.
wasn't.
His accuracy was not very good. He had one decent season. The rest of them were mediocre, right? And Newton the same way. People are talking about why shouldn't Cam Newton be in the Hall of Fame? He wasn't a very good passer. He had one good season, and that was it. He wasn't a very good passer either. I mean, really, the best passer on the list when you're talking about dual is Steve Young, followed by Fran Tarkenton, and then it's Russell Wilson. Really, I liked Steve McNair too, Steve Air McNair. I actually think he's a Hall of Fame, borderline Hall of Famer. I think he gets in eventually. He's a good passer, good runner, but the combination when you look at both of them together, Russell Wilson's number 3 all time quarterback rushing yards and has had some magnificent seasons. So that's, I mean, it's hard to knock him down out of the top 3, but he's definitely top 5. And so some of the other stuff that he talked about too was very that Davis Webb talked about it. It was very interesting to me how he's going about the season and everything. I think and we'll probably get into that in a little bit. I just want to say hi to Shandy Bracy. Shandy, thanks for coming in. Haven't seen you in the chat, so I just wanted to give you a shout out. Thank you, Shandy, saying, "Evening, fellas, Broncos country. Really think the 3-headed monster at running back will help Russ with the play action. Just hope our O-line
Mm-hmm.
has finally been taken care of." Yeah, I mean that's what everybody's hoping for, right, Shandy? I think, and if those things happen, right, if the running backs can really create some momentum in the running game, and the offensive line can give him some more time, and he doesn't have to fear for his life like he had to last year, you're going to see Russell
Mm-hmm.
Wilson as the quarterback we thought we were getting in Denver when they traded for him, right? Because everybody was excited. Everybody was so excited that Russell Wilson was coming to Denver. So you're right. If that happens, that's going to be beneficial for Russell Wilson, and then of course for the Broncos.
Yeah, and Shandy, thank you for coming in. We appreciate that comment. And that last sentence sums it up. O line has to be intact. We hope again. What we saw that last preseason game was encouraging. We hope that the O line can hold up because that's going to be the key to all of this coming together. Um, I I'm I am excited about Russ and how he will improve, but to your point on this 3-headed monster at running back, I am I am just so ecstatic, Thomas, with our running back room. Like I just to see Pookie again. I love P. Ryan, and McLaughlin has just been the story. Just watching him in all of the preseason games with his ability and his quickness. I just cannot wait for this running back room to be out on the field and show us what they're made of. So it's going to be exciting, guys. Thank you, Shandy. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, McLaughlin is intriguing to me for more than just what most people see in him. They see a fast, quick back that's going to, get his opportunities as a change of pace guy. But when I watched him in preseason, he ran tough for a small running back. He fought for extra yards. I am looking forward to seeing these two power backs followed by, a little dose of Jaleel McLaughlin out there. I think it's going to be a fun running game to watch. And I know passing that's the big thing now, right? Everybody is more passing, and you can see it. The passing is taking over more and more every season, but the running game is valuable. And I think it's going to, help this Broncos team so much better than just focusing on the pass. And we'll see in game one, but I think the Broncos are going to have a pretty potent running game this season because they're going to commit to it, and they've got the backs to really capitalize on those opportunities that they have. I mean, all three of them are going to be really tough runners.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab this comment from William Cantalano coming in with the I guess the hidden gem maybe that may come out. He says, who else thinks Jeudy will play week 1 against the Raiders, and the Broncos are just keeping it quiet to lull the Raiders into a false sense of security? LOL. What do you think, Ron? What do you think about Williams' comment here, or maybe theory, I guess you should say?
Yeah, thank you, William, for coming in. This is a good question. I've been going back and forth as well on this, William. To see if they're trying to, trick these Raiders, see what's going on there. I don't. I still don't think they're going to rush Jeudy back. I don't. I really think they're going to play it safe with Jeudy. Again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You'll see, play action passes, Russ hitting his targets, but expect a commitment and a heavy dose of this running game, at least from the onset. But I would say Jeudy comes back, if not week 2, for sure week 3. Because I was looking at the schedule, and I honestly think, we can be fine without Jeudy for the Raiders and for the Commanders. The Dolphins, I would say it would be nice to have Jeudy back week 3. But I don't see it happening. I think Peyton's going to play more of a safe approach, but we'll see. I've been wrong in the past. You never know.
Well, number one, Jeudy is healing up fast enough for them not to think that they needed to put him on short-term injured reserve, right? The injured reserve, eligibility to return, that's 4, you're out 4 games. So they obviously think he'll be back sooner than that. When he comes back, I'm not sure. It's hard to say. That it seemed like a pretty rough injury, but maybe you were onto something, William, because they really made no effort to go out and get somebody to kind of replace him for the first few weeks, really. And they don't seem too worried about it. If you look at the depth chart, they got 4 wide receivers, including Jeudy as one of them, on the active roster. Now, we talked about it earlier, the practice squad, you can call them up. I actually think that they're going to use Philip Dorsett early. They're going to call him up for 3 weeks in a row. He's an experienced guy. I think he can kind of get into the game plan earlier. They're going to use up his eligibility to return. And they're also going to kind of alternate Lil Jordan Humphrey and David Stills in there. And that'll get him even farther before they have to really make any moves. So when Jeudy comes back, even if it's by week 3, he'll be healthy. Philip Dorsett's kind of done. He won't be being called up unless there's some other injuries. They'd have to put him on the active roster at that point. But I think it's within week 3. And really now any given Sunday, don't get me wrong, any given Sunday, so a team can beat another team. But if you look at the first two games, it's the Raiders and then Washington at home. So if you're going to rest any of your injured players, those are two advantageous games to do it. They're at home. The opponents aren't, projected to be incredible or that great. And save Judy for when you go to Miami, which is going to be a much tougher game on paper, obviously. Now, you never know. We're just looking at this from the outside in. We're looking at it on paper. No one's played it down yet of real football, preseason football, yes. But I think you might see them wait. They're gonna have Sutton. They're gonna have Mims. And then they're going to
Johnson,
what's
Brandon
that?
Johnson as well,
Yeah, Brandon
and Brandon
Johnson, who
Johnson.
played really well, and
Yeah.
you're going to see Dorsett, and probably the first game will be little Jordan Humphrey, right? Little Jordan Humphrey will probably be that other receiver that they call up in that first week, and they'll probably make sure Judy's healthy for the long haul, but. You never know. I mean, we looked at nobody, and I was adamant there's no way Javonte Williams was going to be ready for this season.
Yeah.
And here he is looking just fine, looking like the Javonte of old. So maybe Judy's got a little bit of that healing power that Javonte has, and maybe he'll be back by week 1. But it's a good thought, William. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Willow.
Yeah, and I'm going to grab this comment from Robert Ruprecht saying Humphrey looked a great preseason along with Mims and Johnson. And you're right, Robert. I was surprised that Humphrey didn't make the active roster. I was actually really surprised because he did look pretty good in preseason. He had that time with the Saints. He has that knowledge of the offense and things like that. I thought he did enough to make the roster, but he didn't, and that was a surprise to me. I actually thought that he and maybe even Callaway would make it, even though I didn't think Callaway deserved it. I thought Humphrey deserved it. I thought Callaway played terrible. Now he's with the Raiders, but I thought maybe the experience went out. But they went a completely different route, man, and it was crazy.
Yeah. Then I want to get Michael here. Thank you, Michael, for coming in. Appreciate it. He says, I like Brandon Johnson better than all of those players, Tom. Yeah. I mean, again, Brandon Johnson did show that, he does deserve to be on this team. And, Russ believes in him. Peyton believes in him. He's made some good plays. So, the Broncos will definitely use him now with Judy being out for sure. Obviously, we'll have Mims alongside Cortland Sutton, but Brandon Johnson coming in and helping out this team is also good. So.
And Brandon Johnson was the first one to step into Tim Patrick's spot, basically. When Tim Patrick went down, Brandon Johnson was that first guy up, really. Because it was going to be Sutton, Judy, and Patrick. Now it's Sutton, Judy, and Brandon Johnson. He played very well in camp until then he got injured and was gone a few weeks. But when he came back to that last preseason game, you could see that Brandon Johnson's a good player, a good wide receiver. And, who knows? He's still developing. So the best is yet to come for Brandon Johnson. And I liked him last year. I thought he looked pretty good last year, when he got his opportunities. So, he's got the skill to be out there. And you're right. I mean, I liked him better than any of those practice squatters. Although David Stills to me is intriguing. I kind of like his skill set. He's had 2 years in the league. We'll see where that goes. Maybe he needs a little bit more time to develop to become a better receiver, but I think it was a pretty good move bringing him into the practice squad, even though he hasn't been with the team that long. That's why I think it's going to be little Jordan Humphrey in week 1 and not David Stills. David Stills maybe week 2 or week 3 if they need it.
Right. Yep.
All right. Well, Ron, I'm not seeing any more comments that really, are burning. We can end this early and we can get everybody into their Saturday night. Hopefully there's some more college games on that people can go jump and watch. But any final thoughts on the Russell Wilson situation that we were talking about?
Yeah. So I would say it's good to hear from the QBs coach and looking in Russell at that light, and I would say a lot of people, if not most, would agree with him. It's it's also good, and you guys, please check out that article on myhuddle.com, written by Keith Cummings. It's a very good article. Um, he also goes on to um, kind of mention that relationship, and then Russell also provides input on how it's been working with Webb and how they have that good relationship. Um, they gets into some of the things that Russ likes to do. So how they like to unfold the game plan, and Webb will run things by Wilson, just to make sure Wilson's on agreement with kind of how they see some of these plays going and such. So it's a very insightful article, and again, the relationship seems good right now, and hopefully that will continue into the season and out on the field for sure. But yeah, I thought Webb's comments were good, and that Russell and him are working well together. So
I'm looking for a bounce back season from Russell Wilson. So we will see it unfold in in a week. We're going to be watching and with earnest to see how all this transpires. The new coaching, the new offense, the new look Russell Wilson. So yeah, thank you all for being here in the chat. Thank you for your generosity in support of this show. And don't forget, Ron White NFL, if you want to hit him up on Twitter, Thomas Hall NFL, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, we're always down to talk football. And so have a great weekend, everybody. Don't forget, next week we'll be doing the pregame show for Raiders week. It will be fun. We'll be bringing you, really something different than, just yucking it up like the other pregame shows. We're going to get in depth. We're going to talk about matchups. We're going to talk about key players. We're going to talk about scheme. We're going to talk about a few things. So if we have time, obviously we'll hopefully get into it. But like tonight, we didn't even get into our topic until about halfway in. So anyway, but thank you very much for Ron and myself. Have a great evening, a great weekend, and we will see you next week when there's real football. Thank you so much.
yes, thank you everyone. Go Broncos.